Welcome to Connecting the Dots, a non-traditional legal program with your host and trusted advisor, Liz Myska, your guide through the web of life's dilemmas.
Welcome to another edition of Connecting the Dots. I'm your host, Liz Myska, and today I have two guests from the Central Mass Regional Planning Commission. Eric and Nathan, welcome.
Well, thanks for having us.
Could you introduce yourselves officially and what your role is at CMRPC?
Sure thing. My name is Nathan Lewis. I'm the Public Outreach Coordinator and the Assistant Transportation Planner at CMRPC.
And do you have any initials after your name?
No, I do not.
Okay.
Not yet.
Okay. Eric.
Hi, I'm Eric Gemperline. I'm a Transportation Planner at CMRPC. CMRPC, did I say that right? I'm not sure. I am a drone pilot, and as Liz just alluded to, I do have initials after my name, AICP, which stands for American Institute of Certified Planner. And yeah.
Wow.
Fancy.
Wow. Again, I'm learning, even though I've worked with Eric and now just recently worked with Nathan, I'm learning so much about transportation and planning and design and, the urban landscape. But CMRPC also deals with the natural environment as well, right? The non-built environment.
Yep.
Yes?
Yep, we do. So the commission's is broken up into two pieces, RCCP and transportation. The RCCP side does more of the community planning, master plans, housing, and then transportation, we do a ton of stuff from culverts, data collection, federal highway funding,
Biking, bike safety,
pedestrian safety. But the commission is split into two.
Okay, thank you. I had no idea. Eric, I've worked with you before and used your drone services. Just want to give a little overview of our previous encounters, and if you want, I can start. I can start it up if you would like.
No, that's fine. I think I met Liz in 2021. Me, my coworker Rob, and my former coworker Faye. We all did a blindfold walk in downtown Worcester, and it was quite the experience. I found out I was not the best guide at first. We also, as a group, really found out that we were collecting data maybe not the best way and with the apex ramps.
Right.
We learned that they were sending people into the intersection, and oftentimes, even though they were newly placed, they might not be aligned. So we went back into our data collection and really made a focus to make sure that when we collected the data, we made it so that they were aligned or not, just so we would have a better sense of getting around.
And just for my audience and for Nathan, since he just went under blindfold, those truncated domes, those tactile warning panels, at that first iteration with Rob and you, Eric, and Faye, we discovered that some of them are colorized, not in federal yellow. So again, for the audience, when you approach a crosswalk, you get these bubble mats at either end of the crosswalk, and usually they are yellow, but they can also be a different color. And I think it was Rob who said, "Oh, well, some towns colorize them to match the town colors."
Yep.
Not their intended purpose. So anyways, it just made me think about, color, texture, sounds. And I guess that's an appropriate, segue that you, Nathan, you just experienced, and Eric was present, going under blindfold. And if you'd like me to say where we were, off of Shrewsbury Street and where we went, I don't know. Did you know where we were because of your guide? So just like an overview.
Yeah, it was a great experience, first of all. I think it was eye-opening. I never really eye-opening.
Right.
It was really interesting. No, the guy did a great job. I think the guy was trying to tell me where everything was, but creating that map in my head, kind of like trying to figure out where I was according to what my guide is saying, was way more difficult than I could have imagined. I thought I knew where I was. I knew where I was at first. I could see, and then I put the blindfold on, so I knew the street. I know the city, so I kind of know what I'm expecting. But when I saw the pictures afterwards, where I was walking, completely different place. I had no idea, no clue that I was there. I thought I was on the street, or we're crossing some rotary or some part of it, but we were actually walking right next to the rail line. It was just unexpected. To be honest.
Now I'm curious, Eric. Eric, you took pictures. So did you show the pictures to?
I did. So we used them in the newsletter. The pictures, they came out great, I must say. So in your Nate's guide, Mike, was excellent, and he actually was a guide for me. And one of the first times I went with you, circling back, so when we were doing the truncated domes in near Portland Street, I believe they were red, correct?
I'll just say yes.
And so I've noticed this in Northborough when I was doing sidewalk inventory, all their detectable warning panels are red because that's town colors. So it's just interesting. And then when we were at Worcester State, their crosswalk is bright blue for their school colors. And
no hatching.
No hatching.
And like a semicircle.
A very odd shape that you
Yes.
wouldn't really know is necessarily a crosswalk.
Right.
So.
Well, visually you might say, oh, okay, you'd be able to identify it. But when you're under blindfold or when you're blind, these things are not intuitive.
Right.
And again, I think to pick up what Nathan was saying, even if you have expert guidance, I think you're just so overwhelmed by all the information because you're not accustomed to having all of that information thrown at you all at once.
Right.
Because that has been a comment of other people under blindfold. They're trying to process it, and it's unfamiliar.
Right.
You understand what is being said, but you can't filter it out. And I'm just wondering as well, when you look at the pictures, you're thinking, oh, what do I recall about that particular area? So with you, Nathan, because I remember, Eric, when Nathan and the others recently went on that walk, you're like, we're going to go to we're going to go through the commuter parking lot for Union Station, the MBTA. And again, you could see it. What was your experience, Nathan, when we crossed Shrewsbury Street and we walked into that area?
An active construction site, I just want
Active
to let
construction.
everyone know.
Yeah, right. And the train came.
Yeah, it was definitely what you were saying. It was hard to kind of listen, but also think about being blindfolded. So I was trying to listen to Mike, but it also is hard because I was also trying to listen to the traffic. Because when we're crossing the street, all you can hear are these cars zooming by, and you're really focusing on that because that's all you can really sense, if that makes sense. So then when we crossed, and we got to the working area, the construction zone, the textures.
The pitted parking
Yeah,
lot.
the pitted lot.
Parking lot, yes.
You get a little uneasy feeling because it's you can feel the texture of the ground is a little different, right? And so you're not expecting, you don't know if there's anything that you might trip on or there's something that you might step on. But knowing that I had a guide, I knew that he wasn't going to lead me into anything dangerous. But there's still this sense of, what am I going to hit? What is this going to feel like? Could I fall right now? Which is really interesting. I never lost that feeling. I've always felt like I could fall, even though, I know how to walk. I know how to stand straight up, but there's still that feeling of uneasiness here and there.
You're also reminding me that the temporary train platform, so to speak, my guide, who was Michelle Smith from the City of Worcester Planning Department, was describing what was off of the temporary platform, and evidently it was rails, the railroad tracks. And I said, like the third rail? Again, so somebody side would say, well, stay away from that, but someone like me could potentially stray.
Right.
And I think both of you, and I'm just sensing this as well, that so what that translates into human behavior is you just don't go. You don't go because you're like, ooh, it's not safe. I could get into trouble. Or somebody well-intended is going to, quote unquote, help me, and they're not going to do it in a way that makes me feel safe or that makes me feel confident that, that I'm not into trouble. And you've mentioned, and this is why I deliberately do the trainings this way, about the guides, because the guides themselves have been under blindfold, so they've felt these feelings that that you're feeling. So again, I think there's that level of trust of, you're not going to lead me astray.
Yeah. Right.
You're not going to push me down. You're not going to say, "Oh, it's fine. Go ahead."
I think at some points, when you hold the arm of your guide, sometimes they walk a little bit faster, and even just that little pull away, you're like, "Oh no. Come back, no!" But they're always still there. They're always there. They're always going to make sure you're okay. So that was fun.
Well, I think that. When you can see, you know what's going on, but when you can't see, that's why the verbal becomes so important. The more information, and even though it may seem like information overload, I feel that's much more helpful. I want my guides to be, as verbal as possible, because I can stop them. I can say, no, I don't need to know that. I'm familiar with this. But if I'm in an unfamiliar space, which again I try to avoid, I would always go someplace with somebody who I know can guide me, who's going to give me that level of detail. So that it's always very interesting to me when people are like, oh no, I've done this before. It's like, yeah, probably not. In these real time situations. I want to turn back to you, Eric, because you and I, going back to the drones.
Yep.
A couple years ago, we did an exercise on Belmont Street, and Eric was not under blindfold.
Nope.
But we blindfolded Steve Rowley from Department of Transportation and Mobility, and I'm trying to think. There were two other people. Oh, Greer Jarvis,
yep.
From Central Mass Regional Planning Commission, and again, so I had a guide, but we crossed Belmont Street on a Sunday morning.
Sunday
morning. Okay.
11:30. I remember I wanted to get home to watch the Patriots, so I remember that, and it was very cold. But we were flying in on Belmont Street by the hospital. People didn't really care to stop when the RFB, so the rectangular flashing, rapid flashing yellow beacons.
The beacon.
We'll press those, and some cars may not stop. And if you're visually impaired, that's quite the problem.
Yes. Well, and you mentioned safety. So 15 or 16 years ago, when I first became legally blind, a friend of mine who was legally blind was crossing that crosswalk with a cane and got hit and dragged. Because evidently the driver was exiting from the hospital and evidently was looking down or texting or something like that. And so the driver didn't know that she was dragging anyone until people saw it. And so I think those rapid fire beacons were installed there as a patch, but even so, my take on those RFBs is you're not going to be crossing streets with those.
Yeah.
Again, comment, Eric?
So I remember on that walk safety audit, one thing that stood out is, first of all, Belmont Street probably doesn't need to be 4 lanes at some areas. Going down to 3 lanes if you're heading down the hill. People just pick up speed. And then you're either exiting the highway or going down a hill. So naturally, you're going to want to go fast.
Right.
So people had pointed out on that walk safety audit that traffic calming measures could be good for Belmont Street, and I think that's something the city could look at. One more thing is I don't, Liz, I'm not sure if you went up the stairs at the school.
Yeah, I didn't.
Those stairs are wild. They're not uniform. They're different, like heights, widths, and again, someone was hit because they chose to walk across the crosswalk there as opposed to going over the bridge, because the bridge is hard. If you have a stroller trying to get your kid to that school, the Belmont Street School, it's going to be tough.
Yeah, but it's also tough to be hit.
Yes.
You know? So, Nathan, are you familiar with where we're talking about? Up at the top by Bell Pond, there's an elementary school on Belmont Street, and across the road, probably, I don't know, maybe 30 years ago, they built a bridge so that pedestrians could traverse from one side of Belmont Street to the other to get to the school. But now the bridge is in very poor condition, and I think there's, as Eric described, there's a crosswalk there, but it's got like, because people are coming up the hill or they're coming over that crest of the hill, and again, so what, as the community outreach person, is this something that you deal with, that, people are like, oh, there ought to be a law, or, oh, they're, why did they put that there? Or we demand that this be here, and then it's not. It's kind of like the car becomes the king because we have to, the arteries to get into the city or out of the city take priority over the pedestrians, so nobody walks and nobody, and then the statistics are skewed because it's kind of like, oh, well, we haven't had a fatality, but nobody's walking, nobody's crossing the street, so how can you, how can you call that into, comments?
In the community outreach role, people always have something to say. There's always something wrong with their area that they live in. There's always something that they have something to say about, and they always will say it to me, especially since I love to talk to people and go out in the neighborhoods and talk to people and see what they have to say. And once I say that I'm, work in transportation, all these comments come up. But I haven't been able to talk to many people who are visually impaired. So possibly like the crosswalk, other than you. I have talked to you, and you've also told me a lot of things. And that doesn't come up as much in conversation. I think the cars speeding, just not feeling safe walking as much or biking is something I hear a lot. But as of recently, after doing the blindfolded walk, we got people emailing in and telling us about their experiences as being visually impaired and what the troubles that they've had with transportation, which is exactly what I want to do in my work, is to make sure that all people of all kinds and all, just a diverse conversation about transportation. Transportation equity is something that we're really looking for. We want to hear the challenges that people face, so that we can help address them, in some ways, or at least have it in our toolbox to know that this is something we need to fix.
How did the person reach out to you?
They saw our newsletter. You want to CMRPC newsletter? We come out with one every month, and we have tailored articles that we write up for things that we've done in the past month. And this past one, we had the blindfolded walk, and someone on our subscribe list read it, loved it, sent an email to tell me their story, and we're happy to get that feedback, and we're happy to hear more from people. They specifically talked about the WRTA bus. They talked about they talked about the timing of the sounds, like if there's like a law about the timing of the sounds, if there is any. Yeah, and I think that the buses were really important, and it wasn't that they were visually impaired their whole life. It was they had a successful surgery, and so they were visually impaired for only a little bit of time.
Right. And that, again, I don't want to steal thunder from the two of you, but so I was a sighted person, and I drove cars, and then so this what I call my blind gig, my 16-year blind gig, when I learned how to use the white cane, which again is not a requirement as a visually impaired person. You don't have to learn it. It's strongly recommended, but you don't have to. I was like, where are the blind people? I'm looking around, where, because I was a walker. And then I realized, again, as I befriended more visually impaired and blind people, I realized they feel uncomfortable in public, because they don't know, and people well-intended, again, are trying to help them, and people may be pulling you or pushing you, or, or drivers may be rolling down their windows and saying, it's okay to cross. It's like, hello?
Yeah.
So again, it becomes like, who do you trust? And again, what are the consequences going to be if you make a mistake? The consequences could be lethal, literally lethal or injurious. So again, it caused me to think a lot more about human behavior, about like, why do we do things and why don't we do things? And to your point, Nathan, about, people wanting to voice, having somebody say, like, what's your story? I think so often we are, we're silenced because like, oh, no, we thought about that, and that's why I think consulting with members of the population and hearing the different takes, and not necessarily saying, oh, well, we've designed this for you. It's like a design process together, and it's continual, because if you live in a rural area, there probably aren't sidewalks. There probably, none of these things. And when I first started my walking initiative, I had people from, the suburbs, from Millbury and Auburn, downtown downtown Worcester with the audible signals. The chirping one they thought was a bird. They thought that was an actual bird. They weren't thinking, oh, that's a prompt for me to cross the street. And be like, what? That's crazy. But hey, if you're unfamiliar with these things and you've never been trained that way, and again, that leads me into, well, why haven't you been trained that way? Well, again, the services for the state agency, the Commission for the Blind, they're not going to train everybody on everything. I mean, if you don't live in a rural area, they're not going to train you for the, they're thinking if you're going to get someplace, you're going to go in a car. And so the training would be, people, human guides or dog guides helping you. Live in a city, you want to be able to traverse streets potentially. So you're going to become familiar with, street crossings and crosswalks and the truncated domes and those types of things. But not everybody affords themselves the education, and not everybody is taught the same things. And so just because of the variety, and I'm just thinking, Nathan, you've been in your role only a short period of time, but have other people with other types of disabilities, with mobility issues, are they also, trying to get your ear?
Not as much as I'd like. I have gone to many events where I've met people who have organizations that work with people with certain disabilities, but sadly, I don't get as much as I would like. I think you're a proponent, a very vocal leader, so you've come to me and you've wanted us to go on these blindfolded walks, and it's hard to find those type of people in the community, and it's building that trust.
Yeah.
Is really tough. I think it takes a lot of time as well, but hopefully I will get there. That is something that I'm very passionate about. And starting this job, it's something that I hope that we can push more for, is having more of this ADA conversation and making sure that transportation can be ADA accessible. And I think we're seeing a lot of strides in transportation, especially with younger people, considering the ADA accessibility and creating innovative ways of making it better, in some way, and these are all young kids. These are kids in college, who are studying and doing all this, and so. You're
saying young, and I'm assuming you are very young. So.
Yeah, no, you're right. Hopefully that means me too. Hopefully I'm included in that, right?
So talk about both of you, like how you came to this work.
Well, I just want to circle back. You had mentioned rurals, living and just getting around. We were able to go to the Upton State Forest and walk around their accessible trail.
And you were blindfolded.
I was blindfolded for part of that, and walking in a forest is a lot different than walking in a city. You hear a lot different noises. No more loud cars. You'll hear dogs approach all of a sudden. But just, it was amazing what people were able to do. I forget the person's name. They climbed the rocks.
Blair.
Yeah. Yes, it was crazy. I was pretty much bouldering. So it was awesome. And we're really like focused on the built infrastructure of cities, but we also take into consideration other things like trails and the like. And so it's important to have an inclusivity factor.
Well, and again, I'm gonna piggyback off of that because I called that program Hiking in the Dark. And what we were doing is we were training Department of Conservation and Recreation, staffers, summer staffers, how to guide VIPs, visually impaired people. And of course, like, oh, well, we know how to do it. We know the wood. Yeah, well, but you have to go under blindfold first because what your expertise is as a DCR staffer, it's going to be a different experience to be in the woods when you're visually impaired, because you're not going to say, oh, look at that vista, I love that vista. It's like, and that was a delightful experience, and we want to do more of that. But again, we have to lure you in, and we visually impaired people, VIPs, have to lure you into the into our mindset. Like, it's not preferable to do it one way or the other, but it's just different. It's just different to do it under blindfold and realize, again, the sounds, the texture, you're going uphill, you're going down, and particularly in the woods, the roots, the rocks, the tripping hazards are even more prevalent. So thank you for reminding me. So quickly, what brought you to what brought you to CMRPC, and where are you going? Where are you going? Where are we taking this?
So I've always really liked planning and transportation planning. Really the turning point in my life, I did an internship at Rockport Shoe Company, and I hated the just pulling SKU numbers of shoe models that sold the weekend prior and presenting that. I was like, what am I doing? So I decided to go into something that was a little bit more helpful to people, and I think planning is a great way to do it.
Wow. Love that. Okay, can you top that, Nate?
No, I don't know. That was pretty good. I think he's been working on that for a bit. I graduated 2 years ago with an environmental studies degree. Wasn't sure what to do with that. I worked with a nonprofit grassroots organization called the REC. And when that was about to end, I was like,
what do I do?
What do I do? I have no idea. And I started getting into the urban environment because I was been living in Worcester for a bit. And I loved it. I love Worcester, so I was thinking urban planning would be really cool, but I had no idea what planning was really. I had no clue. And then one of our friends, one of the people who work with me, told me about the job that was open, and I applied for it, didn't get it, but then I got offered another position, which is this public outreach. And that kind of slipped me right into the planning industry. So,
wow.
Yeah.
Wow.
And it's just because I love the community so much, I think it really helped out, and it got me out those connections that CMRPC also wants to have with the community.
Well, I want to have those connections with you too. And again, as I said, consider me a resource, and I'll plug you in. I'll plug you into the, to different people, including other people with different kinds of challenges other than vision impairment. So I thank both of you for coming, and this is great. And so I'm much more aware of what CMRPC does, and now I even know how to pronounce it correctly. So thank you for that.
Thank you, Liz.
Thank you, Liz. It was awesome.
Join me for another edition of Connecting the Dots.
Please note that the information provided in this show is not a substitute for consulting with an experienced local attorney and receiving counsel based on the facts and circumstances of a particular transaction. To contact Lizbeth, email her at lizbeth@elizabethlmyska.com or call her office at 508-753-7681. We're online at connectingthedots.lawyer. Executive producers, Lizbeth Myska and Jack Peacock. Producers, John Medberry and Bill Hamilton. A production of Elizabeth L. Myska, JD, LLM, in association with complements.